Roughly 40% of plastics produced are used in packaging, a significant portion of which are single use. How this packaging is designed, managed and recycled is a key aspect to a circular economy. With me today is Jeffrey Osterroth, who is an American citizen living in the Czech Republic for 27 years. And he is the general manager of the Atos Group, a B2B company that specializes in communication within the retail and packaging industries through the production of magazines, specialist magazines, and also the organization of conferences. Jeffrey's work provides him with a unique perspective into why and how we package our goods. So, what is the reason why we package our goods? Are we packaging correctly? And what is the future of packaging? Let's talk about it. Jeffrey, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with a simple question.
Yep.
What is packaging?
What is packaging? Well, packaging obviously has evolved a lot, but if you look back to the original role of packaging, it was growing stuff in the fields, needing to bring it home, put it into a box. That was the original package. Or then it evolved slowly into conservation, putting things in jars so that the fruit will last through the winter. Eventually over time, when people started selling what was in the packaging, then they needed to add things to it, names, and then eventually marketing took over, and the packaging became a marketing tool. And it stayed that way for a long time as the packaging amount of packaging grew, the amount of products that were sold grew, and then all of a sudden we found out we have so much packaging around that we can't handle it. And then packaging became, in a way, vilified, and so packaging became something that people were looking to reduce or replace or remove altogether. And so it became, in a way, vilified. The interesting thing now is the situation on the market now, the pandemic, the crisis, because all of a sudden you see that packaging is going back to its original role, which is protecting the goods and protecting the people who are buying the packaged goods from anything that could be associated with
I see. So we have an evolution of the reasons why we need packaging,
yes,
and also the priority goals of that packaging and what it's meant to represent, from being a container to maybe a preserve, something that's preserving the goods within that containment,
yes,
to a marketing tool, and then an effort to reduce that packaging after so much of it exists in our environment and economy, to the current status with the COVID virus, and perhaps a renewed interest in extra packaging.
Exactly. You see that a lot. You see that packaging was vilified, and they were trying to reduce it, and all of a sudden packaging is back. Before, retailers were saying how they were selling their bread open. We don't need to package it. And then the crisis came, the pandemic came, and all of a sudden all the bread is back into bags, is back into plastic. And because the people wanted it that way, because all of a sudden hygiene was more important than the sustainability of the packaging.
So that's a fantastic way to think about packaging, as this sort of evolving almost species out there, which has got all. So in evolution, there's always driving forces. There's forces which determine our evolution, the environmental forces, the genetic forces, whatever it might be. You're specifically working in the communication between these interest groups within this packaging industry. Tell me a bit about those interest groups, and what are the forces that are determining the evolution of packaging?
I mean, that's very important to say at the beginning, because I publish a packaging magazine, I organize packaging conferences and events, but I'm not a packaging expert. I don't claim to be. Well, what I do know is I know the players on the market, whether talking about the retailers who are selling the packaging, the producers of the packaged goods who are producing the packaging, the producers of the packaging materials, the packaging solutions, the government who is obviously regulating it, and the recycling companies which are having to and the sorting companies which need to handle it. And so what we do is we bring these groups together, provide them with a platform, either printed in the magazine or online or in person at conferences, and arrange it so that they can discuss and come up with common agendas and common strategies.
So, well, tell me a bit about that. How is that changing? What has been the common agenda, and what is emerging to be the new common agenda?
Well, you really see that the number one agenda for the last few years has been sustainability. And I know that's the main reason why we're here. That's what you'd like to talk about it.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. So sustainability is extremely important for packaging. And you saw companies investing in sustainable solutions, moving forward with sustainability, and finding ways to reduce packaging or to make it more environmental friendly. But then, obviously, the crisis came, the pandemic came, and everything changed. And we really look at 3 different ways that it changes. The first I mentioned already, that's the hygiene. Packaging's old role coming back into focus.
Right.
And protecting the products, and protecting the people who are buying the products. That's the number one. The second that you see is e-commerce. I assume you've been using e-commerce for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, I have as well.
Well, one of the things that seems to be quite odd about e-commerce is that not only am I buying a packaged good, but then that packaged good is repackaged for the transportation to the house. So I find that I'm under a mountain of cardboard and bubble wrap.
Yeah.
So this is something, of course, is a concept. We get layers of packaging building on top of one another.
Exactly. And it plays a couple of roles. Obviously, there's the hygienic role as well, because you need to have the packaging hygienic when it's coming. That was on the top of everybody's mind when the pandemic was happening. Right. It's like calling the person from the e-shop, or you're calling and saying, leave it at my door. I'll pick it up in a few days. I don't know who touched it before. So that was obviously a major role. But when you think about the packaging, and when you buy something in a store or you buy something through an e-shop, the packaging is doubled or tripled because it needs the transport packaging as well. So the shift in people buying online, you and I have been buying online, I'm sure, for a while. But there are a lot of people who discovered it now with the pandemic, and all of a sudden are buying everything online. And so the tremendous increase in packaging because of e-commerce.
So you're anticipating perhaps an increase in the amount of packaging that we're using, which goes against the trend that you mentioned previously about this drive for greater sustainability and perhaps a slightly more humble approach to the amount of packaging we're using. Maybe let's take the step back to that sustainability drive. Yeah. Do you have any examples with you of packaging examples which they've made really an attempt to be more sustainable?
Yeah. Well, the thing about these, and these illustrate one very important point, is that those are different agendas. Because on the one hand, we want to reduce the packaging, but on the other hand, we want to reduce, for example, CO2 emissions and the carbon footprint. And so you see a lot of these different agendas. And so I'll show a couple of different things. The first one is my favorite. The cucumber.
The cucumber.
The cucumber. Now, as you notice, this cucumber is packaged in plastic.
Yes.
I could get stoned by some environmentalists who say, why do you buy a cucumber in plastic?
Packaged, yes.
And it's packaged in plastic. It's completely unnecessary. It's got its own package. It's the green on it.
Right.
But when you think about it, and a lot of people went against packaged cucumbers or wrapped cucumbers because it was unnecessary plastic. But it's not unnecessary plastic. If you know that having a cucumber wrapped in plastic keeps the cucumber fresh longer.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's not just the case of the hygienic thing where I can imagine lots of people checking. Is it still
who's touched my cucumber?
Yeah, and you got all the fingerprints everywhere. So which is easily removed by removing the packaging. But you're saying it actually has an effect on the contents inside.
Yeah, it lasts 3 times longer. The cucumber lasts 3 times longer if it's packaged. And so then you get into the competing agendas: the amount of plastics versus food waste.
Right.
Is it good to sell cucumbers without plastic in order to save the plastic, but then to throw away more cucumbers because they're dried out and nobody wants to buy them? I personally don't want to buy dry cucumbers.
Right.
So I always buy them in plastic. And if people are trying to sell them to me out of plastic, I don't want it.
So it's the pros and cons. The plastic sheath there, it's the plastic's sort of inherent properties of the keeping that barrier against whether it be bacteria or indeed the loss of water. I think is the main driver that is making the banana lose it. The cucumber lose its sort of, or it becomes less preserved well. But okay, so that's the material value of the plastic versus what we do with the plastic after it's discarded. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's an interesting example.
Yeah, that's one. So if any retailers are watching, don't try to sell me a cucumber without plastic on it. I don't want it because I like.
Okay. Well, that's you. But do you have any idea about what is the general trend? I mean, do people concur with that opinion?
It's really split. Obviously, there are the people who don't care one way or the other. That's the majority. But then you get people who are really against it. And if you follow some of the online retailers, and their chat groups, they get a lot of hate for selling cucumbers in plastic. And the retailers, in a lot of ways, aren't able to or aren't willing or afraid to explain the reasons.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Your community. So, for example, for me, maybe in the stores where we buy these items, there could be some sort of explanatory text or whatever, a diagram saying, okay, the reason why we are selling this product in this packaging is because, yes, we understand that we have to be sensible in the recycling of the packaging, and for this you can go here, there, or wherever, or you can use this these resources, but it does ensure that we have significantly less food waste. It's retaining water in the fruit itself, and therefore preserving it for consumption over a longer period of time.
Exactly.
So, which reduces all sorts of, I don't know, carbon footprints and problems associated with food waste.
Exactly. So that's the one agenda battle, you could say, is packaging versus food waste, and also hygiene versus excess packaging. Okay. So that's one. And then the second that you'll see is competing agendas. Is we all want to save the environment. We all want to help. Yeah. But what's the way to do that? Is it reducing CO2, reducing the carbon footprint, or is it reducing the amount of plastics, improving recycling so that plastics aren't lying on the beaches and in the oceans and getting into the stomachs of the fish? Yes. It's a very difficult point. I brought another. This is a Swedish company that does Mexican products, actually. So they came out with new packaging for their tortillas, right in the front. You can zoom in on that. New and improved packaging, 35% lower CO2 impact. Read more on the back.
Read more on the back. Okay.
Yeah. And when you flip it over and you read on the back, the first thing you should see if you like recycling, if you're a recycler or a sorter, is number 81.
Okay.
Which first thing is that
what's number 81?
Well, the first thing is that there are at least 81 codes. Anyone who wants to recycle needs to basically know all these codes if you want to recycle well. Obviously, there are the top ones, but 81 is composite. What does composite mean? Well, they wanted to reduce the plastic, and they said in order to reduce the carbon footprint. So what they did was they took
So what was previously a plastic?
It was all plastic before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all plastic before, monotype material. So
and now that's obviously a plastic back.
That's it. Right now it's a 100% plastic back, but
and the front is a composite material.
The front is 50% plastic and 50% paper. Okay. Now,
but you can't recycle that.
Well, you can technically. I'm sure there's some way. I'm sure there's somebody on Earth who will recycle it.
Right.
In some way.
Okay.
And again, we're talking about material recycling, not burning it, because burning it is also recycling it.
In terms of energy content.
Exactly. So I actually Googled this before I came here, finding out what do I do with this as a consumer. I love recycling, or I love sorting, and I love that the material that is sorted is then recycled. Very important point. Sorting does not equal recycling.
No. No,
okay.
We've discussed it on several. Let's talk about it.
I'm sure you've had it. Yeah. So I want to do it. So I Googled it, and basically the number one answer on Google was call the company and ask the company. Who's going to do that? Nobody's going to do that. They're just going to throw it out.
No.
And because what you really should do is you should separate it, put this in plastic, and put this in, I don't know,
in paper plastic, composite material.
But it's composite
there
material.
is none. There is none.
There is none. Exactly.
So
again, you get the competing agenda. How do we help the environment? Are we going to improve the carbon footprint, lower the CO2, or are we going to encourage recycling by having packaging which is all of one material and very easily recycled and identifiable? Because that's another major problem. Is that
for me, it's about education and communication.
Exactly.
Because you can argue that this big 35% lower CO2 impact will sell that product.
It will
give it a competitive advantage over others.
Yes.
And it's got nothing to do with the content, just the packaging.
Yeah.
So people are going to make consumer choices based on that packaging. And really, it could be based on I don't want to say a lie, but certainly something which makes it very difficult in the sense that you cannot then put that into if you put it into the paper or you put it into the plastic, you're both wrong in either case. You would have to, that would suggest that should be incinerated rather.
It's certainly not a lie. Everybody has their own truth.
Right.
Sometimes the truths are different, as we know in today's day and age.
Yes.
So it comes down to what is the agenda and what are they pushing. And because
not just the agenda. For me, it's about the priority.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, what is the priority? Is the priority to reduce carbon dioxide? That's been admitted. And then we've had lots of discussions about how the hidden carbon footprints of all sorts of different types of packaging or recycling techniques, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to understand completely what is the best route out.
It is very difficult. You get again, it's the competing agendas and the need for communication, again, which is what my business is the communication, so that the agendas can be synchronized and we can agree to priorities as to what the agendas are. Because we all have the same ends, they all have the same goal, that is to help the environment, reduce the pollution, improve sustainability, but what's the path that we take? Everyone has a different opinion on that.
Okay, let's move on. I see you in your box there.
Yep, my box, which actually is the original package.
That's the original packaging.
That's
imagine coming from the fields,
exactly.
you'd have your cucumbers without the plastic sheet in there.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm glad that you had that here. That is the original packaging. So this, again, competing agendas. You see the different suppliers of the materials. You have suppliers who are supplying plastic, who are supplying paper, who are supplying metal, glass, and each one is claiming that theirs is better. Some are actually coming up with very innovative solutions to reduce the carbon footprint, to make the packaging more sustainable.
Right.
This is one example which I like because it actually shows a different. Shows two competing agendas. One is what materials are. They reduce the amount of plastic, so the plastic inside is thinner. But this is actually paper here.
Right, so this is another composite.
This is it's a composite, but it's a composite that can be recycled.
It's
exactly.
100% composite.
And it says here on here, unzip meter recycle both paper and plastic waste separately. So great idea. So we pull that.
I see. So it has a paper sheet.
Yep.
Which has the marketing and information.
Yep. Which is actually very thick. This alone is too thin to be sold separately.
Yes.
Yeah. So they reduce the company. So it's actually one company that does it. That's doing both the paper and the plastic on it. It's originally a plastic company, but they're doing paper as well now. So this is too thin, and so they put this on it to help make it stronger in the store, so it doesn't get wrecked. But also because it's better to print on the paper than to print on the plastic. It's more ecological as well, and you can fit more on there. And interesting as well is that this plastic that's here is actually half virgin and half recycled plastic. So it allows them to do more with the plastic as well.
Okay, so as a scientist listening to that seems to me a very intelligent solution.
Yeah.
That it's making the most of the individual materials, their advantageous inherent properties.
Yes.
So plastics, this is probably a polyethylene or polypropylene plastic, that's my polyethylene, which has got fantastic properties. Yeah, polypropylene. So it's not gonna allow any moisture or water in.
Yep.
It's perfect to keep any sort of contaminants away from the product. And then it's using the tensile properties of the cardboard to reduce the amount of plastic. That sounds good. And then this is presumably then this can go into the paper recycling bin. There's a lot of information there.
That's the other agenda. When we're talking about packaging, there are competing agendas and competing legislative agendas. Because on the one hand...
I would need a microscope, I think, to read it.
Yeah, exactly. I have no chance. And you are young with good eyes. Imagine...
That's very kind of you to say so.
Well, yeah. Imagine a grandmother who is in the store, older lady or older man, who's in the store trying to read this to figure it out.
No chance.
No chance. No chance at all.
So this is about legislation. They are obliged to have this there.
Yes.
So that's another interesting thing. So we're producing a lot of extra packaging because we have to we have to commit to some sort of information has to be there by various legislative bodies, right? Yes.
And it has to be a minimal size of text as well. It can't be microscopic, even though I'd say this is microscopic. So you get the agenda of needing to have the text, the required text and information on the packaging, but also the competing to reduce the packaging as much as possible.
Right.
So it's a competing legislative agenda and trying to fulfill this. And the result is that the consumer is faced with text that he can't read.
Quick question. Quick question. To whom does this belong?
That's a good question. Obviously, this belongs to me because I bought it. But
should it belong to you, or should this belong to the? Should this bit belong to the company that's producing the plastic, and should this bit belong to the company that's printing out on?
Well, there's de facto and de jure. De facto, it belongs to me because I bought it. But according to law, the producer of it has a responsibility to take care of it even after it's bought. And so that's why producers invest in sorting systems to make sure that the plastic does come back. That's one. The retailer has sold it to me, and so the retailer has a responsibility as well, even less. But the number one, I think the de facto, is that it's with me now. But if I throw this away, if I throw this out on the street, nobody's going to know that Jeff Osterroth threw it away. Nobody's going to
Right. They're going to
see the brand,
and it's the brand's
on here, and they're going to believe that it's the brand.
So by throwing it away, it puts pressure on the brand to actually then. And are they, from your insight in the industry, do they feel that pressure?
They definitely feel that pressure. And this is
so when somebody Instagrams a bottle of something,
yeah,
or a packaging of some sort, and says this is yours to
yeah,
the company,
yeah,
they feel that pressure.
That's a hashtag.
Are they changing how they? It is.
There's tremendous pressure from the different sides. Obviously, the producers are responding to legislative pressure. That has to be, but also the pressure from the people themselves, from the consumers. There is a hashtag is this yours, where people take pictures of garbage left on the beach. They tag Coca-Cola, for example, and they say Coca-Cola is this yours,
drink, yeah,
or any other soft drink. I know Coca-Cola or Cola or Pepsi or whatever, and they just to be fair, they tag it and they say, is this yours? Obviously, it's not theirs, but because their name is on it, they feel a responsibility for it, and therefore they're driven to try to find sustainable solutions, so that and support sorting and recycling,
okay,
so that so that it's not found, or if it is found, it's treated in an environmental way.
All these, hearing this, there's obviously a circularity then in the pressures involved in how this evolution to the future is occurring. So let's just briefly at our finish, we're coming to an end, but
yep,
how, if you can summarize your knowledge of all these pressures which are evolving with time, how is that going to impact on our future? What is the future of packaging?
Well, I would have said 3 or 4 months ago that we were on a clear path, that obviously everybody is moving towards sustainability. Producers, retailers, everybody was committed to it. It was obvious, it was a firm part of the strategies of companies. Obviously, the world has changed in the last few months. We've written about it and we've studied this. We've talked to many different producers, retailers alike. And we found everybody is saying sustainability is still the top of our agenda. Obviously, they say that, they believe that, and we believe that they believe that. The problem is there are different agendas now which are coming into play. I mentioned the hygiene, we talked about the e-commerce. The third is very important, and that's the economics. If the pandemic is followed by an economic recession and companies are laying off people, are they still going to have the money to invest in sustainable solutions, which tend to be more expensive because you need to develop them, you need to invest in research and development. And then the second are the people. Are the people willing to spend more for sustainable packaging and sustainable solutions? Because again, they tend to cost more. Up till now, people were willing to do that. But are they still going to be willing if they're going to have less money in their wallets? And so that's uncertain for the future, is how this is going to play out.
So that uncertainty, I think we should resolve by inviting you to come back in, say, a year's time to see what has been the impact, the long-term impact of the COVID virus.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see.
And let's hope that there's a commitment to a sustainable future upholds, and we become very smart and use our scientific knowledge, our marketing knowledge, our communication expertise to find the right solutions to tackle these packaging complexities. And I've got a little packaged present here for you.
Thank you.
A very sustainably packaged one.
It looks very reusable. I'm sure we'll get to use it.
It's a T-shirt with our show. I hope you enjoy it. To package yourself in such a comfortable
Fantastic.
item.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so, Jeff, thank you very much for coming to Let's Talk About It.
Thank you.
All the best.
Okay, thank you very much.